Hello, everyone. Welcome to File New, the show for creator, artist, and tech news. I'm your host, Ryan Selvy. Today is March 29th. It's a Friday. Happy Friday. We've got a lot on the show for you today. We've got the FTC investigating TikTok. We have a really cool collaboration with Basquiat and Polaroid. We have Instagram political features and how they affect you. You can either have them turned off or turned on. They're on by default. We'll talk about that in just a minute. There is a new phishing attack for iPhone, which is bombarding users with the message to reset their password, and then it gets to a point where you can't use your phone because there's so much bombardment, and then they end up phishing you and giving you a call. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And then also Adobe announced GenStudio, which is really cool, using Firefly services, which we'll get into in just a little bit. But we have a lot to get through, so let's go ahead and hop straight on into the news. All right, so starting off hot, the internet is about to change, especially for kids and teens. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a social media ban for minors on Monday, and it bans children 13 and under from having social media at all. 14 and 15-year-olds require parental consent, and the new rules take effect January 1st, so all those 13-year-olds that are turning 14 in the next few months are probably pretty happy. It doesn't name any platform specifically by name, but it instead defines platforms as services that allow users to upload content or view the content or activity of other users. It also classifies services where 10% or more of users under 16 use the platform on average 2 hours a day or more. It employs algorithms that analyze user data or information on users to select content for users is another qualifier. If it has infinite scrolling, if it has push notifications or alerts, if it has a display of personal interactive metrics like liking or reacting to a post, and if it has autoplay video or live streaming. This is actually coming off of the tails of something that's similar with a bunch of other states this year. Texas, Montana, North Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Utah passed age verification laws in the last year for internet access. These obviously are not to scale, but all 8 sites now require government IDs to access websites and content deemed as adult. Adult sites are sites with more than a third of the content being labeled as adult. Although Kansas is expected to pass a most aggressive bill that has not gone to the governor yet, but it says that any site as low as 25% of adult content is considered adult. And Kansas, of course, also is considering and calling homosexuality. Kansas is also calling homosexuality adult content, which is terrifying for me. Yikes. The bill is currently on its way to the governor's desk, and we'll see where it goes from there. Speaking of adult content, though, what is an adult site? What about social networks? An article from TechCrunch from Amanda Silverling shows screenshots that X might be rolling out a not suitable for work communities feature. It'd be part of the communities feature that rolled out in 2021, where it allows users to post within smaller interest-based subgroups similar to subreddits on Reddit. The communities feature was rolled out in 2021, which was a year before Elon Musk acquired the company. And according to David Ingram at NBC News, X, formerly known as Twitter, has had a sharp decline since the acquisition. Research says that X has 23% less active daily app users since Elon took over. Recently, X has been rolling out many new features in an attempt to lure back users. Actually, on Thursday, Elon tweeted that going forward, all X accounts with over 2,500 verified subscriber followers will get premium features for free, and accounts with over 5,000 will get premium plus for free. According to Cointelegraph, some users are saying this incentivizes large groups of scammers to join hands and repurpose accounts for different types of cyber attacks. X, of course, has denied criticisms, though, and says that all is fine and dandy, and that the user numbers are still high and still going, but they haven't provided any sort of data to the contrary. This contradicts data from Sensor Tower that says X is far outpacing the decrease in other social platforms like Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram. But that might not be forever, because TikTok is in second place for declining users, and it might change soon because TikTok is being investigated by the FTC over data practices. This reporting comes from Hallelujah Hadero for AP News. The FTC is investigating whether the social network violated a portion of federal law that prohibits unfair and deceptive business practices by denying individuals in China had access to user U.S. data. This follows a 2022 report that TikTok fired 4 employees when it was revealed they were using data to track journalists leaking information about the company. Hedera says lawmakers and intelligence officials have said they worry that the platform could be used by the Chinese government to access U.S. user data or influence Americans through its popular algorithm. To date, though, the U.S. government hasn't provided public evidence that this has happened. But no one might be in more danger than Be Real. Remember Be Real? It's the app where it gives you a notification to post at a certain time. You don't use your camera roll. You just post in the moment. It posts on the back. It posts on the forward. So it has a picture of you and whatever you're looking at. Well, apparently they held a meeting last month letting employees know that they only had 10 more months of runway before they run out of money. This reporting comes from Elizabeth DeLuna at Mashable. She says they've kept operations small at BeReal with a staff of only about 60 people, but server and operation costs do add up. They're looking for an acquisition, but if no one bites, they might fade away. The app has 25 million daily active users, which seems like a lot, but apparently it's not luring any investors. It is a 5 million user increase since 2022, but only time will tell if it sticks around. I personally have not used it in a long time. Wondering if you guys are using it as well. But let's switch gears to something happier and more exciting, because that was a lot of heavy news to start the show off. I found a really cool collaboration between the past artist Basquiat and Polaroid. If you're a fan of the 80s New York artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, Polaroid is selling Basquiat-themed cameras and film. The cameras are hydro-dipped in portion of his 1982 painting called Boy and a Dog in Johnny Pump. Looks like this. This is also how the back of the camera looks. So when you put it up to your eye, it looks like that. Since they're hydro dipped, they are all unique. And they just basically, you take a film of some sort, or if you wanted to, you could even, it's easy to do. You fill up a tank with water and then you put paint down, and then you put primer. So if you have paint, like you can use actual spray paint and you just like spray paint on top of the water. Then you take a primer and you put it on top. When you have your nice prepared object that you want to have, you just go and you just dip it straight in. It then transfers it straight to the object. And so much so that now they actually make these films that you can have that rather than spray paint or paint, you take the film, you put it on top of the water, you put the primer on top, and then you dip the object into it, and it can then transfer it over to an object. Because it is a very literal liquid mechanism of transferring that object, no two cameras are going to be the same. They're probably all going to be a little similar because they're all using probably the same film as they go in, but it has a unique quality to it that Polaroid is advertising. They also have these really cool Polaroid films that come along the packets with it if you buy it in a package of both the camera, the strap, and the Polaroid films, and they are using other paintings of his to surround and kind of accent the Polaroids. This is coming from the idea of Polaroids and instant film being used in fine art. I know that Andy Warhol used them a lot, and he was very close friends with Basquiat, and this was the same time during the 1980s in New York City with art. If you are unfamiliar with his work, I definitely suggest you check him out. Very cool, very painterly, and these cameras are still available. The full packages with the camera, strap, and film are sold out, but the last time that I checked, the camera and the film are still individually available, and that's just on Polaroid's website. I will include it in the show notes if you want to check them out. I guess it's the best time to go on and saying that all these views and opinions and suggestions are all mine and not Adobe's. They are all Ryan Selvy's, and Alli's segment is all of Alli's. So take that with as you will. Even though we're on Adobe Live, these are my suggestions and my opinions. Next up, let's keep talking about camera stuff. And there's Tiffin, which is a filter lens company. It is these cool filters that you can put on top of your lens that make things look starry or misty or kind of have a halo effect. And traditionally, they've been only on the end of your lenses that you have the adapter for. But basically, there is a new adjustment that you can put on the back of your phone that adapts their existing filters for your phone. So they recently, a few months ago, came out with one for the DJI Pro, and you had to get individual filters for this thing that went on. But the cool thing about this is that Tiffin is actually letting you use your existing filters that you have for your camera, and you can just put it on this magnetic adjustment that goes on the back of your iPhone. So you take the cool thing, you put the little filter on top of it, and you take the magnetic thing, it sticks right to the back of your phone, and then it can add some cool effects to whatever you take a picture with. And the cool thing is it's doing it with actual physical adjustments, so it's not going to look the same as if you were to do it in post. It's cool to always kind of get it on hand. And they have so many different options. Like I said, they have stars and mist, but if you go to their website, they have a bunch of different filters. And then the cool thing is, if you buy it, you're not only buying it just for your phone, you're also buying it for your camera as well. And it just looks like something that's really easy to put in your pocket. It's magnetic, so you don't even have to always keep it on your phone. You can just put it in your pocket, put it back on, take it back off, to get a really cool effect. And it, it looks big because it has to go through it. But now that most of these phones have 3 different lenses, it's good to have it go around all 3. Speaking of more camera stuff, one more thing that I came across this week was this dock that turns your phone or iPad into a 4K monitor for your camera. This and the last thing I found on Cinedi, and this was written by Alexander Thompson. It comes from the video transmission company Acsoon, which is ACCSOON. They released the CMO 4K, and they actually recently had one in the past that wasn't 4K, it was just HD, but now it's up to 4K speeds where you can use your phone to stream to platforms like YouTube and TikTok using the professional cameras that you have. All it's using is the HDMI output from your camera or DSLR or whatever you're using. It can transfer up to a 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. And then they also have some faster frames per second, but then the quality lowers. I will say if you're streaming to YouTube or TikTok, you really don't need to go over 30 frames per second. So I don't see why you would need to, but it is possible, and it goes down to like 720p if you go up to like 120 frames per second. But if you're streaming it, you're not really getting slow-mo anyway, so it'll just kind of look like a soap opera. I'm not sure. The adapter has its own NPF battery, one of those big fat camera batteries that you can have on the back, and it charges your phone or iPad while it's connected, and then it saves everything to your camera roll. So it's just a really other way to get really high quality content. Obviously, your lens on your iPhone is a really good lens, but still it's not going to be the same as filming something with a professional camera. It's really cool that this is accessible to be able to take your live streams or just capturing your footage to the next level. And it's also really good because then you can connect to like an iPad, and rather than having to look at the little tiny screen, you can have this giant iPad that then plugs in and in real time is showcasing what your camera's seeing, which is really nice. Thank you to Keys over in the Behance chat, by the way, for taking the time to put the link in the chat for me. I appreciate it. This is a live stream, by the way. Hello to Menez over on YouTube, and hello to everybody over on Behance, like Umacorn, Clever, and Robert and Bruce, Tori. Thank you guys all for being here. We're getting a lot of news, so I'm just blowing through before I can say hello, but I see your comments and I appreciate you here. Then next up, let's talk a little bit about your phone. We were talking about cool things you can do with your phone, but this is less cool. This is a vulnerability that was highlighted this week for iPhone users, and it hasn't been resolved yet. Apparently it's even been around for like 2 years, but I saw a lot of it popping up around the news this week. iPhone users were complaining of being raided by password requests. It's a phishing attack that Apple has been unable to address up to this point. The user is bombarded by system notifications telling them, reset password, use this iPhone to reset your Apple ID password. Since it is a system level notification, the user can't use their phone without accepting or denying the notification. But if this happens to you, no matter how many times it happens, hit don't allow. It feels like since it is so over and over and over again, and it's such a high level notification that eventually you should hit allow. Don't hit allow. Hit don't allow, and make sure that you are keeping your password safe. The attackers are also making phone calls that look like they're coming in from Apple support. So your phone will tell you that it's coming from a number that is Apple support, even though it's not actually coming from them. And then they're going to try to get different codes that help them infiltrate your Apple ID. When you get an Apple ID code, it always texts you and says, never reveal this over the phone. They're going to try to swindle people through it, but don't do it. If you're really actually worried about it, you can go in and you can call Apple support from your phone. When you call, make an outbound call, they won't be able to spoof it, which is what it's called when they are making it look like it's coming from them. For outbound calls, it will be a secure line. So if you're really worried about it, it's probably a hack. But if you're really worried about it, call them and then have that line of communication. Never give that information out over the phone, especially if it's coming out of nowhere. And this is coming to you from 9 to 5 Mac with Michael Poddick. You can check out the article. It will be in the show descriptions in the event that you have it happen to you and you need to find a way to fix it. There's one solution that I saw on the site that said that you can go and you can change the phone number that's associated with your Apple account, but then that's always going to make things very complicated. But then if this is happening, it might make your phone unusable, so it might be your only case. Check it out on 9 to 5 Mac. Let's hop on over to some Adobe news. At Las Vegas annual Adobe Summit conference, they announced GenStudio. So GenStudio is a tool aimed at social and media marketers to generate content, publishing it, and measure its performance all in one place. This includes social media posts, display ads, email campaigns, and eventually full websites. It comes from the marketers and designers dilemma of having to create so much content for so many different platforms. When I was working at an ad agency, it's something that I ran into all the time. We had a campaign or we had something to post, and it was like, okay, now you have to resize it for Instagram and this banner ad and this billboard and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And it just became overwhelming and so time consuming. Naturally, some artificial intelligence can ease that workflow, but most companies and designers haven't really been able to reap the benefits of it because it doesn't leverage their official real-world products or it doesn't follow brand guidelines, so they can't really give up control. GenStudio is hoping to help that. It includes a lightweight version of Adobe Express, Workfront, and Customer Journey Analytics, and users can determine brand guidelines and implement official imagery across renditions. So it can do expand and contract, it can fill in some generations, but what's really cool is they also announced Firefly Services, which allows businesses to fine-tune the Firefly model with providing over 20 APIs for developers. They can make sure everything stays on brand across generations and like image generations or anything, and they can publish it and then directly follow the performance of their executions all in one place. I think this is a really cool tool because it helps designers focus on the cool designs and like core ideas for creating content. So if you're like photographing shoes or something, you can really just focus on getting the cool shoes, but not having to then take it and find 40 different ways to crop it or style it or what have you. You can then kind of build a library and then help with GenStudio to then be able to adapt across many different tiers. And some sadder news, speaking of photography again, Richard Serra died. This beautiful photograph of him. He was a sculpture artist born in 1938, and he rose to fame in 1960s New York. He's famously known for these giant pieces of metal sculptures that people have to walk around to experience. The whole idea was that you weren't able to just get the whole idea by standing back. You had to get up close, you had to walk around, you had to walk away. But he's famously known, and I learned about this at MICA, for his giant piece of metal sculpture that was placed in a plaza in Manhattan of a government building. And basically, it just went across the whole plaza and it broke it apart. So when you were walking across the plaza, you had to walk around this thing. And people hated it. There were these huge protests about it. There were also people who were advocating for it, saying art is art no matter whether you like it or not, and how it's making things and people change their commute and the way that they're walking in the space because of this giant metal piece. This was in 1981, and it was 120 feet long. It was 12 feet tall, so you couldn't see over it, even if you jumped. And it was there from 1981 to 1989. There was even a lawsuit about it, and it was removed. It was supposed to be permanent, but they ended up getting it removed. The thing about it is they didn't move it to another place because the big note about the sculpture was that the sculpture wasn't just the sculpture, it was how it interacted with the space itself. So you couldn't necessarily move it somewhere else, like a field or kind of to another plaza, because it was uniquely made with the intention of it being in this Manhattan plaza. So that's really interesting, and that was one of a controversial one. But he also had these really crazy ones that, you know, had spirals that you walk through almost like a corn maze and get lost in, but of course you're isolated and you can't see out over them. And he also did some paintings as well, but he's really known for these giant, heavy sculptures. There was also a commentary about class and affordability because they were so heavy that some of them were just wealthy by design because they were so heavy and impossible to move that if you wanted them or you wanted to move them, you needed to have access to crazy amounts of money to just be able to move them. So then that was also the art about it. But unfortunately, yeah, he recently died. I mean, he lived almost 100 years and made a profound impact on the sculpture world and the art world, and really contributed to the New York art world, especially in the 80s. We're talking a lot about 80s artists today. But if you have never learned about him, look him up on YouTube. There's a lot of really great documentation, and some people have made some really great things about him and his life, and I would definitely recommend looking him up. He also still has a lot of pieces that are available all around the world. So if you're really interested in seeing some of his work, there are plenty of galleries that are showcasing his work. I'm sure they'll probably be sure to highlight it even more now that he has passed, but you might be able to see something near you. But that is all the news that we have for today. And I know we hopped into a lot of politics, and the politics and art, it is the peanut butter and jelly of the world. So let's hop into some more politics, and let's hop into thoughts. Okay, you're still here. Don't worry. We're not going to dive deep into politics. In fact, Meta would really appreciate it if you kept it down about the whole political environment. We've got an election in 8 months, and they don't want to talk about it. Meta has actually been purposefully and intentionally separating itself from politics. Threads has been avoiding and downplaying any political discussion on the written platform that is a competitor to Twitter or Blue Sky or Mastodon, but now it's also affecting your Instagram feed. Luckily, on Instagram is giving you the option to control this feature. Instagram recently rolled out an automatically opted-in preference to decrease the amount of political content you can see within the app. Amanda Silberling from TechCrunch luckily wrote up a walkthrough about how to deactivate it. So you're going to go to the Instagram app, then you go to your profile. On the top right, there's that hamburger menu. It's little 3 lines. You click that to get to your settings and activities. Then you scroll down a little bit. You go to content preferences, which here, by the way, you can also see the filter for news that has been debunked. And you can say whether you want more moderation, medium moderation, or like no moderation. It's up to you whether you're going to go with that. But there's also a section called political content, and you tap into it and you can then turn it off and say, no, do not filter out political content for me. I want to know what you guys think about this. I am on the fence. I don't know how I feel about it being automatically opt-in, but at the same time, Meta has famously been under a lot of scrutiny in the past for its political involvement across the world. Some would argue free speech is being impacted by this, but it also seems like a bit of a double-edged sword, because I'm not sure what the answer is. Identifying what is political and what is not political is also very tough. I don't know how I'm in a place to trust if the algorithm is going to make that decision for me. But this also puts me at risk of misinformation and making me unhappy while I scroll, which definitely makes me understand the appeal of not wanting to see any of that. But also art in particular can be polarizing. I mean, we were just talking about that sculpture and the idea that some people hated it and other people enjoyed it, and other people just were like, we need to acknowledge it as art for art. But what do you think about it? There really is no wrong answer here, I don't think. Clever says, I protect myself by limiting how much politics I see and hear. It's tough in big election years. it's one of those things like it can get you really down too. So I don't know how I always feel about it. Key says they don't want a pale Zuck in front of Senate hearings again. And Kendall says, I don't mind it as long as it's an optional on or off. Keys is saying, Ryan, stabilize that gear. It's like watching the news on horseback. That is me shaking my leg because I love to shake my leg when I am focusing on something. So I'm going to mount it down and hopefully we're not going to have any more bouncing. But thank you for voicing that. Sometimes people like to voice opinions and people like to really voice when they are upset, speaking of politics. So there's one other thing that I want to talk about, and that is something that happened this week with the new museum in New York. They shut down until the rest of the year and into 2025 to finish construction on their expansion. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's been going on for a bit. The museum was bought in 2008, and they bought the lot next to them with no set plan. But then eventually in 2019, they announced the expansion. Many in the architectural and art world praised the design, but locals voiced the disconnect it has with the visual surroundings. It was designed by the Office of Metropolitan Architecture in collaboration with executive architect Cooper Robertson. It's a 7-story, 60,000 square foot expansion, and it will double the museum's exhibition space. It will create new venues for artists, residencies, and public programs. Personally, I love the design. I personally think it aligns with what is already standing there as the museum structure, which is there on the left. And I think it will become a big part of the neighborhood. I think it already is the idea in the neighborhood. When something like that is there, it really takes over the whole block. But I also understand the love of one's own neighborhood. I am way out in Brooklyn, far away from this, and this is not my neighborhood. That said, I would like to live next to this. It reminds me of the Micah Brown Center, which is a old school building that I used to take graphic design classes in down in Baltimore, Maryland. It illuminates the space, especially during long winters, because it has these huge glass windows. And because there is glass and it still has structure, it feels like, from a weight sense, it feels really light and open, and it's nice to be next to. If you look at the renderings they have these angled sides, which reminded me of the Brown building, but it also has these really big windows. Rick says, wait, I missed the intro. What museum is this? This is the new museum in New York City. What do you guys think? Do you like it? Is it a bunch of out-of-touch artists just kind of coming down onto an area where it doesn't belong? What do you guys think about it? Let me know. But speaking of a bunch of people cascading down onto an area which normally aren't there, let's go into Ticketbooth. We've got some nerds to talk about. So WWDC, which is the developer conference for Apple. It's the premier developer conference. It is June 10th through 14th this year, and you can expect the next version of iOS, watchOS, and tvOS. This is all software updates, so they don't normally announce a new phone or anything. It's just the software for it. You can expect another OS of iPhone to come out. They'll be on to 18. There are a lot of rumors as to what it's going to be about. When they were advertising it, they said it's going to be absolutely incredible, but they put the A and the I outside of parentheses. So it was like A parenthesis. So I don't know how to say absolutely without saying the A, but it'd be like absolutely, and then an I, and then in parentheses, credible. So obviously they're going to be talking a lot about AI. There were talks about Google Gemini, which is their AI system working with iPhone. That's just a rumor. Who knows what that will be? But no matter what it is, it will probably show up at the developer conference on June. They actually already launched a whole Instagram for developers on how to work with it, all without revealing any new features. And it's just another kind of turning point, because as we're approaching different AI systems, it is going to also affect the hardware that we're working with. So make sure you stay tuned. It'll be in June. We still got some time, but you know how it goes. Then next up, also, Pratt is having its MFA program and its fine arts thesis exhibition. So there's two parts to it, and part one is going on now until April 5th, and then the second one will be April 29th to May 10th. It's called Unfixed Ecosystems, Obsidian, and Yarrow. It has painting, sculpture, printmaking, and integrated practices. It's all of the students and their entire work as they were there at Pratt, and it all accumulates to this, and it's very cool. And then next up, we also have Milan Design Week, which is going to be April 15th to 21st. Design Boom has a great write-up on it. If you don't know, Milan Design Week began back in 1961 with a furniture fair called Salone del Mobile at Ro Fera Fairground. Since its inception 6 decades ago, the annual furniture fair has grown to become the largest in the world, with more than 2,300 companies showing. They have a really good walkthrough of all the different locations all around the city. If you can make it to Italy, put me in your suitcase. I would love to see it. But it seems like it's going to be a really big deal. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun, going to show a lot of cool things, and you should check it out. All right. Speaking of things to check out, I've got some resources for you guys. Things to make your life easier and more fun. So Spotify actually launched a mini player finally. It's been like over a decade. People have been asking for it. But it's great for when you want to have access to song information and controls, but you want to have something else full screen. Photoshop. The big thing is it will update and it will have your content that you can then cycle through and see what it is. It floats on top all the time. You can move it around. I already checked it out. It's available on Mac and on Windows. And it's just in the bottom right with a little square within a square, and you just click it and then it will have its own window, and then you can move things around. You can exit out of it and it won't stop the music. It will just kind of get rid of the mini player. It's super helpful, and it's now native if you just update your Mac and Windows. And then also we have some exciting Adobe Firefly things going on, and this one in particular is called structure referencing for generative art. Now, have you ever like used Gen AI or something and you really want to show that it is like you have a pose in mind, and so you write in something like, you know, somebody fighting, and you're unsure for it how to kind of have the exact same one you want. Like maybe it'll get a guy fighting, but it's not the pose that you want. Well, Andrew Hockrottle was kind enough to make a little rundown as to how this works, and it's on his Instagram. So let's check it out real quick, and you guys can see this cool new feature by Firefly. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. You can see here that he has his own photo of him in a pose. He uploads it to Firefly, and then you can see that it automatically gives him different options of the same pose that he has it focused, and he can just change the prompt as to what he wants it to be. He can make it so he, you know, is making fire. He's a chef. In this case, he's like a little fighter. He's a male action movie star, and he doesn't even have to work out. He just can get the exact pose that he wants, and then it kind of can follow what's going on. There are a few other examples that some of the Adobe community has made, which is really cool. You can do the idea of kind of the MTV logo, where you design a logo and you then are transported to creating it over and over again in different capacities, so that it just continuously changes the style of it. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up another one for you guys. I have a whole list of these, which is really cool. It's been cool working with Adobe. I've been able to kind of see the different features of people really posting about it. This one is from Callum Creative Club, and what he's been doing is he's been using sketches to then create what he wants to for his mock-up. So he wanted, in this case, to have a billboard in the middle of the mountains, but he lives nowhere near mountains. So he went in and he just tried to generate multiple billboards and landscape of a mountain scene, but it didn't give him what he wanted. It kind of wasn't a vibe that he wanted. So he went ahead and he just sketched out a very simple drawing, and then he uploaded that image into Firefly, and then was able to actually get something that was very, very close to what he already had drawn. And then he just goes ahead and he puts in the mock-up for it, which is really cool. And once again, that is Callum's Creative Club. And you can find that on Instagram. Just add Callum Creative Club, which is really neat. I'm interested to see how you guys use it. There are multiple ways to really take advantage of this technology. And it gets closer to be the idea where it elevates designers, not necessarily just like replacing them. But I would love to see what you guys do with it. Next up, we have Aqua, which is this cool text to or speech to text program that's available via the internet. And what is unique about it is that it can actually go and reframe and reword as you're talking. And I'll show you actually the Aqua Voice demo that they have on YouTube. And it is just a really cool feature that helps take notes or get things out of your mind. So we're going to go ahead and once again, I'm going to share my screen and then you guys will be able to see it. So this is the video. Let me make sure that I have my audio shared real quick for you. And then we will hop right into it. So do some audio output capture and then we'll press OK. So with that, you should be able to hear this.
This is Aqua Voice, a fully voice-driven document editor, and here's how it works. The outcome of the meeting was that I decided to buy, or that we decided to buy 500, actually make it 1,000 GPUs. And can you make it NVIDIA GPUs? And that's how Aqua works. That's the long and short of it. It can do a lot more, but at the end of the day, what it's trying to do is say, what does this person actually want to write down? So let me continue on. We'll also need at least 1,000 AMD EPYC CPUs, Samsung 900 series SSDs, and I guess some server racks. And can you actually take all this equipment and put it in a list? This is actually an email to Martin, who's a sales guy at NextLink. Can you add a header for that?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, more or less, that's the idea of it. It has a free number of credits that you can use. It's just Aqua Voice. I will once again put that in the description for you guys if you guys need to use it. But it's really nice to be able to kind of see this new approach of having the voice to text and text actually understanding grammar and formatting and different ways that you can go in and you can proactively have it changed. But that seems like a resource. I wasn't sure if it was a resource or a hyperlink, but we're going to have Alli walk us through some hyperlinks. So let's hop on over to hyperlinks. And we filmed this yesterday, which was Alli's birthday. So make sure you guys give Alli a very happy birthday. But let's have her take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. Get out of here. It's time for this week's hyperlinks. Do you want to help create one of the longest flip books ever? Don't worry, you won't be doing it by yourself. Just head on over to pudding.cool/project/flipbook. Fun fact, my sister made flipbooks her whole childhood, and we all thought she was going to be a flipbook artist growing up, but that's actually not a thing. It's not really a thing you can be. Help draw the longest flipbook animation ever. It's like the telephone game, but visual. So there's been 10,952 frames drawn so far. Instruction. To the best of your ability, trace the last person's drawing below. Make one continuous line. You have limited ink. Ah, that's so scary. Okay. I am tracing. Wow, I can't imagine what this is. Okay. Submit. Thanks for helping. Get added to the credits or notified when the flipbook is done. That's super fun. Then you can copy the link and share. Just a really fun project. All our hyperlinks this week are kind of whimsical reminders of how fun the internet can be. It's not just about stalking your ex and buying things you can't afford. Once you've contributed to the Flipbook, you might really be feeling part of a community, feeling like, oh my God, like together we can do so much more. We can be so better as a society. You might be having a utopia craving. If so, you can head on over to the Utopia clicker on Tiny Subversions. Tiny Subversions is Darius Kazemi's website. He's a self-described internet artist. His website includes some other really fun projects like Make Someone, but today let's go check out the Utopia clicker. Okay, it's a very simple website. It's tinysubversions.com/game/utopia. You click generate 0.1 utopias. All right. Keep clicking. 0.2. We're almost there. We're almost at a whole utopia. Keep clicking. We did it. That's it. That's the whole game. It's very silly. But if you like, maybe we want to do more. Still clicking, huh? You know what's a pretty good book? Moby Dick. I mean, I've never read it. Maybe if I read it aloud to you, that'll help motivate me. Okay, here it goes. Moby Dick, or The Whale. As you click, it generates the different sections of Moby Dick, including etymology. Yeah, just like very, very silly. I've never read Moby Dick. I tried to read Moby Dick. I couldn't get through the first chapter. But it is crazy when you think about whales used to be our enemies, and that's crazy. It's crazy that whales used to be our enemies. Now, I would do anything to see a whale. I have paid like $90 to see a whale in Iceland. Anyways, like I said earlier, today's hyperlinks are very whimsical, and the next one is no exception. InBFlat.net is described as a collaborative music and spoken word project conceived by Darren Solomon and developed with contributions from users. So it only works on desktop or laptops. This isn't a mobile-friendly site, but it's cool and kind of calming. You basically just click around and create your own little soundscape. But yeah, let's try some. That's a muted trumpet. Love it. I don't know. It's so pretty. It's like the second time I've done it today, and it's just so cool to make your own little soundscape. Because every time you do it, it's different because you're doing it in a different order. I don't want to leave. I don't want to say goodbye. I guess we have to. Show's got to go on. Man, it's my birthday today. I'm turning what I'm only going to describe as a serious age. If you're feeling insecure about what you've accomplished in life so far, like me, I have a website that might make you feel worse, or better. We'll just have to see. It's janwillemtolp.github.io/parallel lives. I think this is another one that's really only going to work on desktop. I don't think it works on mobile. So the way it works is as you scroll, it starts tracking time and also historical figures, showing you their ages. So I guess one of the things that's really cool about this website is you can see like people who lived at the same time of each other. Because it's easy when we think about history to just silo things and to just think about historical figures being in a bubble, but they were not. They were part of a big web of culture. So you see the age of people at every year in history. There's 3 columns: culture, discovery/science, and leadership. Names are scaled based on their prevalence in Wikipedia. Cleopatra, oh, she was queen at 26. See, that makes me feel bad. That makes me feel bad. William Shakespeare, playwright at 28. Today he'd have an HBO deal. HBO. I think HBO. Or maybe not. Maybe he would just have a Substack. William Shakespeare Substack. Virginia Woolf was 38 when John Maynard Keynes, The Economist, it was 37. That's really weird that Virginia Woolf and Keynes were contemporaries. That's actually super trippy to me. Oh, wow. And Stalin. Stalin is only 3 years older than Virginia Woolf. I think there could be a lot more columns, like friendliness, that could be a column. Wow. Meryl Streep, 31, when Donald Trump was 34. All right, let's move on. Continuing on our whimsical artsy hyperlinks journey, I definitely recommend spending some time on Wild Memory Radio. www.wetransfer.com. I just want to give props up front that it's just a super beautiful website. I love the colors. I love how floaty it is. I like the way they interact with my mouse. And it's a website that hosts audio of different artists talking about one of their favorite places. Yeah, let's just click around. So this is Andrew Bird's Memory.
I would drive down in my old Buick, and I'd be so exhausted. I was trying to stay awake, and I remember one time my radio in my Buick was broken. So I was just trying to get some kind of stimulus because I was starting to fall asleep, and I was just listening to static on the radio, really loud, like ear bleeding loud, just to not fall asleep. And then I got out of the car in the parking garage, and I found myself making this sound, because every time I hear a tune, I whistle it if it's good, or maybe not if it's good, in evidence with this static, because it was a weird moment when I was just repeating what I had just heard, which was complete noise.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a really cool project. It's obviously just like gorgeously designed. I didn't actually realize that WeTransfer had a division in the company that did these kinds of like artistic projects. So it's really cool. Hats off to all these people who are part of creating it. I think this is where we're gonna leave it. How am I gonna get out of here? How am I getting out of this segment? I feel like I'm just rambling. Ryan, help. I don't know how to get out of the segment, Ryan. Help. Help. Quick, minimize me. Minimize me, Ryan.
A big thank you to Alli, as always, for the hyperlink section. I think my favorite of this week would probably be those stories. We only showed a little portion of it, but I would definitely recommend going on there and checking it out. They're kind of like little podcasts, but they're also just, very easy listening if you just want to relax and figure something out. But we only have a little bit of time left, so let's go on and hop into Rebrand. So Brand New has a brand new look. If you're not familiar with Brand New, they are a really great website that helps highlight different rebrands and brand identities that are going on by under consideration. I would definitely recommend checking it out daily if you can. They have a free tier which just shows you the ones that are shown at the surface level, but then if you pay I think only like $2 a month, you can actually get access to their full analysis and rundown. Basically, they had this kind of just straight up font for a previous one in recent years, and then they actually spent a lot of time and a lot of effort into really honing and creating something new with this brand new logo. We have had Matt Voice on the show before, and it is a really great animator. He makes really cool stuff. You've probably seen him stuff around. They actually leveraged him to make some cool animations for it. I don't know how much they are comfortable with me showing straight up on the show, but I will pull up just a quick little brief look at the case study that they created for the rebrand. And if you want to check it out, you can definitely check it out. Like I said, you'll be able to get the top tier level kind of view of it. And you can see all of this kind of information if you pay a little bit. They also help subsidize if you are unable to afford it. You just reach out to them and say, hey, I can't really afford the $2 a month. Is there any way you can get it? They actually have like a program for it. But they're really beautiful. It's really scalable and moving around. They took a lot of time in making sure the colors made sense and they weren't invasive. They were actually going to do a mascot at one point, but then they decided that was too cartoony and that it didn't really fit with the idea of it. But I think it's extremely strong. I love the really weird ligatures they have. It's nice to see when someone else is critiquing a bunch of everyone else's stuff that they are also having a high quality logo as well. And then also Disney Plus merged with Hulu this week, and now Disney Plus's logo is a little bit more teal. It's a rebrand that isn't much of a rebrand. You can now access Hulu within the Disney Plus app. It's there right next to like Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars, and now there's like a Hulu. It's interesting seeing them rebrand as an identity, because now is Hulu just going to be a classification of content, or is it going to have its own look? Like, is it going to become a new like channel? But basically this was the previous one, and then they moved over to the next one, which is really not too noteworthy, but interesting enough. And then one more campaign that I thought was really cool, and this comes from Creative Boom, is IKEA is doing this really cool creative campaign with saying you can afford it, and it's basically talking about how their stuff is really cool and cheap, but it is things that can be broken by pets, and it's not the end of the world. And basically it's just a bunch of pets next to broken stuff that then has a price tag next to it saying you can afford it, and just kind of highlights the humor and kind of I don't know, the aggression and frustration that comes with having a pet sometimes. We only got a few minutes left, so let's hop into Spotlight.
3 flashlights here.
All right, so our very first one is from Slice of Life Film, and they have a really cool breakdown of how they used miniatures in their creation of a film. So let's check it out.
We are filming the president's arrival to the NASA building.
The plan was to film the same car 3 times, each time stopping at a different place, and then I'll combine them in post, creating the illusion that we could afford 3 miniature cars. Of course, the upper part of the shot required some love as well, so we decided to create a parking lot. With a limited number of miniature cars, we could only fill 1/2 of the lot, so we filmed the other half in another pass, reusing the same cars and simply turning them around to avoid any noticeable repetition. Additionally, we introduced a black car parked in 4 different locations to represent the security vehicles. And to populate the shot with more life, we filmed a lot of people on a green screen. They were then composited into the scene, enhancing the overall realism.
All right. So, I mean, I think it's pretty neat. It's a nice way to remember that everything doesn't have to be a 3D model or anything has to have this huge production. You can actually just take a thing like a miniature, as they would in the old days, and then adapt it to things that you're working on now. And then the one other thing I want to show you guys is a really cool explanation of color theory, and this comes at us from Art Pete Repeat, and this is really neat, and I'll just play it and then we can check it out.
I've got 3 flashlights here, a blue one, a green one, and a red one. And as you can see, when their beams all combine, you get white light. And if you take a piece of paper with a slit in it and you block those beams, you can decompose that white light back into its constituent parts, red, green, and blue. Now this is something really cool. If you take something that casts a shadow, it's actually going to cast 3, a cyan, a magenta, and a yellow shadow. And if I allow each of those shadows to pass over the slit, you're going to see that they block out only their complementary color.
Really neat, right? And also well articulated. I will say that Art Pete Repeats Instagram is quite the rabbit hole. You should check his stuff out on Instagram. He teaches a lot of stuff. He's a really good educator. It has a really good way of showcasing those things too, even if they are things that you might think that you know a lot about. Clever saying light physics are crazy and amazing, and Cody is saying whoa. But make sure you check them out. That is our show for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in at this weird time. We will be back at our normal time next week at 4 o'clock here on Adobe Live for File New. I also have these uploaded as a podcast on the weekends. So if you are somebody who uses Spotify or Apple iTunes for your podcasts, make sure, or anywhere you listen to podcasts, just search for File New Show and give it a subscribe and give it a 5-star for me. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm figure it out. And please Feel free to reach out to me at filenewshow@gmail.com for all of your questions, comments, concerns, commentary. Would love to hear from you. Thank you for everyone that was in the chat. Thank you for Cody Bear for being our moderator. And once again, all of these views are my own, and they are not Adobe's endorsements. They are Ryan Selvy. Thank you to Alli Rodgers, who produced this episode. And thank you for everyone that said hello to the chat. It was really great having you guys here, and I will see you all next week. Thanks for watching.